Audio test.
All right, looks like you're in. And so is Matt Ludwig. So
Um,
I will get out of there.
oh, and there Debbie Gray is.
your meeting look like this, Deb? Here's what our meetings look like. And then everybody's about that big, and then if I swipe over it, you know, then whoever's talking comes on my screen. Usually I'm on my screen. But this is a WebEx. I like WebEx.
Hey, Matt.
Hi, Steve. So, hey, Steve, can you hear me?
Yes.
So, you
Are
remember
you hearing me?
last board meeting, I talked to you about the Nemadji One Watershed, One Plan, and we're trying to figure out how to govern it, you know?
Yep. Yep.
And they're leaning towards a collaborative. And the point I want to talk about is with Bowser and with this One Watershed, One Plan thing, we as the commissioners are supposed to come back to our board and make sure our board approves of the way it's governed. And I know we talked about it there, and what do you? So do we have to have a board vote? Do you know the answer to that?
Yes. Because here's what I think, Matt. We are used to, as a county board, being involved with joint powers. Some of these, especially this Lower St. Croix one, have all these watersheds who are joint powers are just foreign to them. And a lot of soil and waters are not involved with that. So in my opinion, what they're really saying is the person that's going to that meeting can't speak for the whole board.
Right.
So they want to go back and have a vote to say yes. And I say we send people, if we send Matt to a meeting, he's representing Pine County. And if he makes a bonehead decision, we'll let him know about it, and they'll either not do it again or they'll change it back or whatever. You know what I mean?
I do.
But
You're
in order to move forward, I just kind of finally went along with the whole thing till we get the thing operational. Because I really think in the end, we need to end up to make it the most efficient, end up as a joint powers, just a straight joint powers group. But it was not going to happen in the Lower St. Croix. So we became a joint powers collaborative. And in the end, what convinced me is that, and you can ask Reese again, but once we set a budget for the people, then they don't have to, every time they're gonna, let's say, maintain a ditch or do something, they don't have to come back. If it's in their budget, they don't have to come back to the board, and then all the boards have to go back to their boards.
I get what you're saying. That's kind of once we already have some governorship established.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out the method at the beginning. Do we need the board to approve what we're going to use? So I kind of went along with a collaborative right now, but I don't know if that's the best.
I don't think it is the best in the end, but it seemed like that was the thing that was going to get us to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And
you can always move up to a JP.
We can always move up once people get used to working in that environment.
Okay.
But
so that's the way I'm going to stay. I want to get that. That's the way I think we talked about that exactly the same way last time, but it's kind of confusing.
It is, but it seems so laborious. Mm-hmm. Why would we send you to a meeting if we don't send the authority with you to make a decision?
Oh, exactly. I get that. But once you have a plan established, you're pretty much going to follow the plan. Then it's going to be just which one, how you rank them, which one you're going to do. So.
And I think once we got past the stage of being organized and have a plan, then things will go a lot more smoothly, I hope. We got some very diverse groups that are used to working in their own environment and they don't understand working with other people. Where I think as county boards, we do it every week. There's not a week that goes by that one of us isn't at some meeting
Mhm.
that's involved other counties, other entities. So, yeah,
And I think it's the commissioner's responsibility then to go back to the board if he thinks there's a problem.
right,
But if things are going along good and you're staying in the plan, it should just work fine, right?
right. And I think the thing that we have done a good job of in our county board is making sure we have those committee reports. Because otherwise, if you're on the emergency management committee and you don't come back and tell us what's going on, how would we ever know that we even had somebody there, you know? So
Thank you.
yeah.
So,
Hi, Josh. Hi,
David,
John.
Good morning, Steve.
Are you cabbing, John?
Oh yeah, they're dropping left and right.
Good. Oh,
hey, David, you look pretty sharp.
chilly today. Wow.
Mhm. Hear from Josh at all?
Yeah, I just saw him.
Oh, okay.
He dialed in. There he is.
He's here.
Not hearing you, Josh. Josh, you must be on mute. Say something again. No. Are you hearing Josh?
No.
You're muted, Josh. Can you hear us? Okay. We're not hearing a word you're saying. You can always try the old trick, hang up and reconnect. Hi, Jackie.
Good morning.
I see call in user number 2. Do we know who that is?
No. It isn't labeled
No.
on mine. Mike is on though.
This is Caleb. I know Don Shermer from Dozy Township was interested in joining the meeting. Don, are you on?
Is Steve Chafee here?
I have not seen Chafee yet.
Yeah, that's because he's on the phone.
Oh, he's on the
He is
phone.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't do the WebEx. But I want to tell you, Steve, that I'm probably not gonna make this whole meeting because I'm sick, so.
Oh, okay,
Stay here, but if I disappear, you know why.
okay. Caleb, who were you looking for?
There was a gentleman from New Dozy Township, Don Shermer, that was interested in joining for the public hearing.
Caleb, did you get rid of all the compost bins?
They're still going. They're going like cakes.
Hey, Terry.
Good morning.
Hi, Reese.
Joe Newton has joined and is gonna do a presentation later. Joe, do you want to check your audio and make sure we can hear you?
Can everybody hear me?
Oh, yep, we got you, Joe.
Thank you.
I see there's Elena White.
She's from the paper,
Okay,
the Courier.
okay. I have a robin that insists on, it starts about 5:30 in the morning and it keeps flying up into the windows of the house. And it'll do it, it's still doing it now. You go out and chase it away, hang stuff in the window, and then it goes to a different window. Okay, I have 10 o'clock. And I'll start by reading the reason we're doing it this way is because the governor of the state of Minnesota has issued Executive Order 20-01 declaring a peacetime emergency and coordinating Minnesota's strategy to protect Minnesotans from COVID-19. On March 24th, the Pine County Board of Commissioners declared a local emergency for Pine County. Based on these conditions, the chair of the Pine County Board of Commissioners has determined that the requirements of the Minnesota statute 13D.021 subdivision 1 have been met, and it is not practical or prudent for members of the county board to meet in person. Members of the county board will join the meeting remotely. The public is invited to join the meeting remotely, and there's a phone number, and if you're not able to hear the phone number, you're probably not on the call. So anyway, we are going to watch, and you could watch and live stream the broadcast for the meeting. So we'll see how that goes. We will call the meeting to order and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
Stands
one nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I like the flag. Good job. got some feedback going on. If you're not on the county board and you're not speaking at the time, I would ask that you mute your microphone, and we'll help remind you to unmute it if you need to speak. Thank you very much. Public forum. We will allow public forum. We'll give you 3 minutes to say what you need to say. If somebody wants to say something. I see we have some callers on, so I do not hear anybody wishing to speak at public forum.
Commissioner, this is Judge Martin.
Yes. Oh, Judge
Commissioner,
Martin, yes.
this is Judge
thank you.
Martin.
Yes.
I wasn't sure when you, if this,
We do have you on the agenda.
to address the,
If you have time to wait, we do have you on the agenda. Right after a little public hearing we're gonna have that won't take long. Is that okay, or do you have to get to do something?
okay,
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
it looks like Commissioner Moore has rejoined. His audio did not work last time. I wonder, can he just do an audio
Can you
test?
say hi, Josh, if we can hear you?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, great, thank you.
All right. I got a cell phone and iPad, so we're double
Okay,
whammy in it.
I've done that before. I could not explain it then, and I can't explain it now. But we'll move on to the agenda. I know we have at least one addition, right, David?
That's correct, Mr. Chair, members of the board. If we could add agenda item number 6.1, and that is the consideration of hiring an assistant engineer, Aaron Gunderson, effective May 26th. The rate of pay of $45 per hour, grade 16, contingent upon a successful background investigation.
Any other changes, additions, corrections? If not, we'll look for a motion for the agenda.
Ludwig will
Commissioner
move.
Moore will move the agenda.
I heard Commissioner Moore move and Commissioner Ludwig second. The clerk will call the roll.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes,
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
okay, we'll look to approve the minutes of the April 21st county board meeting and summary for publications.
McRae moves.
Thank you.
Moore second.
McGrath moves, Moore seconds. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes,
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye.
okay. I just got a text from Representative Nelson. He has joined the call by phone, so if we have any questions for him, we can certainly ask. So thank you, Representative. We'll move on to the minutes of boards, reports, and correspondence. Pine County Land Surveyor Monthly Report for April 2020.
So moved, Ludwig.
Again, McRae.
Second, moved by Ludwig, second by Mikrot. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
District 3, Commissioner Shafey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Mickret.
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. You've had that packet in front of you for some time, so we're looking for a motion and a second for approval.
Mikrot moves.
Moore will second the consent agenda.
Okay, we've got Mikrot, makes a motion, Moore seconds. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
District 3, Commissioner Shafey. District 3,
Sorry about
Commissioner
that.
Shafey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Mickret.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Okay, move on to our regular agenda. Public hearing, county zoning ordinance amendment 2020-20. That's a lot of 20s. And we'll have a presentation by staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, ordinance 2020-20, amending the county zoning ordinance. Recently, New Dozy Township passed through formal motion an indication that they would like to rescind their township zoning ordinance and opt into the county zoning ordinance. So this ordinance effectively does both of those items. We've received all of the zoning records from that township and we're ready to roll. I think that's all I have.
Are there any questions from the board members? I think this is getting to be pretty standard practice, so we probably have our questions that we would have asked before answered.
This is Commissioner Moore. I did have one quick question. Is there anybody else, are you working on with anybody else, or is this kind of just kind of the first wave, or is there a couple other that are interested but haven't quite pulled the trigger yet?
Yeah, I know there's some that have been interested. There are any townships that are actively and considering it for the near term.
Is there anybody from the, are we done with commissioner questions? So we'll move on to the public part of this hearing. We have any people from the public or the township that's affected? I'm not hearing anyone. We'll go back. One last chance for the board to ask any questions. If not, we will consider adoption of the ordinance 2020-20, amendment to the Pine County zoning ordinance and rescinding all existing land use and zoning ordinances and amendments thereto adopted by the New Dozy Township.
Ludwig moves.
Moore will second.
Was that Mikrot I heard first? We'll go with Mikrot. Ludwig moves, Mikrot supports. One last chance for any questions from the board. If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
District 3, Commissioner Shafee.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Mickert.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes. Now, we'll go to the next public hearing, which is the septic system. And we have a presentation by staff also.
Okay, this is again similar to what we would have done at a very recent county board meeting. Del Grove Township passed through formal motion a decision that they would like to defer septic system regulation to Pine County and rescind their township septic ordinance and inspection program. So this will just be rolled into the existing program that we have in most areas of the county.
Okay, any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Ludwig, one question. Is staff able to handle all the stuff out there, Caleb, with where we're staffed right now?
Very good question. We think that we can gain some efficiencies by trimming processes here and there at this point. There's yet another township that it was too late for the public hearing on this one, but we're another township that'll be at the next county board to go through this process again. And it's starting to make me scratch my chin a little bit, but I think we're gonna, at this point, I'm feeling comfortable.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we'll open it up for the public portion. If anybody from the public wants to speak on this ordinance. I see somebody unmuted. I'm not sure if they wanted to say something. It said caller number 9 on mine. Anybody hearing anybody? If not, we'll close the public part of the hearing and we will go back to the county board. Anybody got any last minute questions? If not, we'll consider the adoption of ordinance 2020-29 on behalf of Del Grove Township, rescinding all prior ordinance and amendments and ordinance regulating subsurface sewage treatment systems within Del Grove Township. I need a motion and support.
Mickert motion.
Moral support.
Got a motion by Mickert, second by Moore. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 3, Commissioner Shafee.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Mickert.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Okay. Judge Martin, are you still with us?
I am still with you.
All right. Sorry about that, but now's your time to shine. So I know you shine all the time. We are looking forward to hearing a presentation from Judge Martin on the Pine County District Court proceedings. Go ahead. Now,
So
I have lost her. Now I can hear you, yes. No, I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, how does this work? Hello?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you.
Working? Is this working better? Okay. I ended up going to my phone because I'm having some difficulty with my WebEx. I apologize for that. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. I certainly was not expecting that my presentation would be about a pandemic, and I had very much hoped to talk to you about our Law Day theme this year and to give you an update on the courts. But of course, we've been interrupted, and so I think just briefly I'll tell you what the Law Day theme is, and then give you a little bit of information about the court's response to the pandemic, and then absolutely answer any questions that you might have about the building, how it's being used, or what our operations are right now. So the Law Day theme this year is one that's near and dear to my heart. This is the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. I'm very unhappy that we can't celebrate that more robustly. Judge Wynn and I had put together an art contest for all of the students in 9th through 12th grade in Pine County. We had invited them to submit projects that we would then had a panel of women lawyers were going to judge for us. We had a cash prize, and we were going to display those at the building in commemoration of this event. But again, those things, of course, did not happen. Nonetheless, it is a very exciting anniversary for all of us. I had thought that my initial comment was going to be it's a very exciting anniversary for women, but I talked to my 25-year-old son about that, and he said, Mom, it's a very exciting time for all of us, not just women. So I appreciated that because equality, of course, and the role that women play in our democracy is important to everybody. So that's our Law Day theme, and that's we're hoping to celebrate, and will celebrate somehow this year. As far as the pandemic goes, as you know, our building is closed to the public because that was your decision, and we are fine with that. The Chief Justice of the Minnesota Supreme Court has issued a couple of administrative orders in response to Governor Walz's stay-at-home order. The second of those administrative orders just came out recently, last Friday, and it gives some more clear direction on what the court should be doing in this time. We, in immediate response to the closure of the building and the stay-at-home order, we began handling all of our bail hearings by ITV. So currently we are operating without anyone in the courtrooms with the exception of the judge, a court reporter, and a court clerk, and we do our best to maintain our social distance. Our staff is limited significantly. We are just having minimal staff in the building, and then most of our staff are working remotely on a rotating basis. The judges also are rotating in the building. I'm not there today. It is very hard to stay away, I will tell you, and but I have promised that I will only be there on the days that I'm the duty judge, so that is the days that I'm handling in-court hearings. However, we have been trying to expand our remote opportunities, and so we have been, every judge in the 10th District has been assigned a virtual meeting room, and we can use that to hold court remotely, and I have done court from my home over the past few weeks. It is difficult because we are having difficulty like I did today with the virtual meeting room and everybody joining. The technology is not great right now. I think part of the problem is the security protocols that the state has for our what we call our VPN. I think has been causing some difficulties. And I'm using my work laptop today, and that might have been why I've had some difficulty. And we have some broadband issues as well around the county. We nonetheless can do a lot of our work by phone. So we have had a lot of phone hearings. We continue, of course, to handle our commitment hearings, which are more time sensitive. We continue to do our bail hearings. We continue to do all non-testimonial hearings for defendants in custody. We do probation violation hearings, sometimes by phone if we have to. We are continuing to do emergency guardianships. And we have also been continuing to handle our divorce files for our initial case management conferences. We've invited lawyers to put cases back on the calendar that can be handled by phone. We have been encouraging the criminal defense and prosecution lawyers to try to handle as much as they can by paper, plea petitions, sentencing waivers, and we've been getting a lot of work done that way. When we are handling felonies, we do have to be able to see the defendant to sentence them or take a plea, so we've been using our meeting rooms for that purpose and have been getting some of that work done. We continue to do all of our signing. We can still sign agreements, stipulations, judgment and decrees, default judgments, and all of those kinds of things. So we continue to do that, and we can still sign warrants. We have worked with the jail staff and the prosecutors and defense attorneys to try to reduce the population of inmates in the jail and to give people dates to come back to serve whatever might remain of their jail sanction or jail time so that they're out of the jail right now. We continue to have our pretrial supervision program, so people are continue to be supervised by the probation department. I'm not going to say that our work isn't significantly limited, because it is, and we do have a number of cases backing up. That does cause us some concern. Obviously, most importantly, and perhaps significantly, we are unable to do jury trials at this time. So we do have a number of defendants in custody who've made speedy trial demands, and how and when we are going to start doing those again is still in the works. I have had the opportunity to serve on a statewide committee which the Chief Justice put together. It's called, kind of strangely, the Other Side Committee, and we're a small committee staffed with folks from the State Court Administrator's Office, and we have worked very hard on putting together a very robust transition plan. We continue to meet every week, if not twice a week, and so we have, the courts have definitely been working to advance our cases and to do the work that we can do. Because I can't see you right now, I don't know what reaction I'm getting, but I think I'll stop talking, and if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask me.
Well, the reaction I'm seeing is we're so happy to hear your voice. And you're excellent, really, Judge Martin. We've probably all worried about how the court system is getting along, and you were reassuring to me anyway. My one question, Judge Martin, is tomorrow I'm going to sit on a committee from the Association of Counties, AMC, to start looking at takeaways that all of this has caused us to do, and there's some good things that we have discovered that we can do just as good, or maybe sometimes even better, and because we've had to think differently. And so, do you, just off the top of your head, have any takeaways so far that you think, we can really do these whatever things remotely? And if I was sitting in my chambers, I could have a lot better technology and I could do these remote hearings, maybe. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Certainly, I feel like right now the technology isn't faring as well as it can and will once we get the bugs worked out.
Right.
But I do think that one of the overarching considerations of the committee that I'm serving on for the judicial branch at the request of the Chief Justice, I chair the committee, and we are definitely acknowledging that we need to leverage what we're learning, just like you talk about with the counties kind of having a meeting and talking about leveraging what you're learning. The courts are going to do that as well. The first, there's a couple of things that immediately come to mind. One of those, I think, is really more having the understanding now that we can perhaps use the criminal court rules that we already have in place and accept a case resolution on paper. We've always been really reluctant to do that because we're a people business and we are in the business of having people in our courtrooms and, you know, adjudicating the people's business. But I think that all of us in the criminal justice system have learned that there might be cases that are really appropriate for some discussion between the attorneys, a decision on a consequence or a remedy, and then putting that in paper form and sending that in without a hearing. So I think we will see that process being used perhaps more and more once we get to what we call the new normal or the other side. I think the other thing we can leverage is this idea that we can handle commitment hearings remotely. I think the hospitals have started to, you know, kind of increase their use of ITV and video conferencing. And I think that we haven't done that before because because the respondent and the patient in the hospital needs to be with their lawyer. And so we've always done that in the courtroom instead of having the lawyer, you know, drive to the hospital, wherever that might be, and then try to have an ITV hearing. Right now, the rule for that has been suspended, and there may be some talk about continuing to suspend that rule. We'll have to talk to the lawyers about what they're learning, but, you know, it certainly saves money not transporting respondents to their commitment hearings, but also, more importantly, perhaps is easier on them, on the patient, if they're not getting in a squad car and driving to a courthouse. You know, people who are having mental health issues, that is very difficult for them sometimes. So it might be a way that we can leverage what we've learned for those cases. And then I think the prisons, as you can imagine, are very excited about the prospect of not having all of these inmates ridded out all over the state of Minnesota to attend their hearings. So if we can, again, leverage our ITV capabilities, our video conferencing capabilities, I can see an opportunity there to save some time and money in transports. And also, you know, that's always a security risk when you're transporting inmates. So we've done that in the PIC counties. You know, we've already started using ITV for bail hearings when we're handling them for other counties, and we're no longer having to transport our inmates to have a judge like an Isanti handle them. We can do those by ITV when necessary. So I think this is something we can leverage at that level as well and be a cost saving to the county for sure. We've talked about other types of case hearings, and I really think, to be honest, that right now we're in such a kind of a preliminary stage that we need to just continue to assess, get feedback, work with our justice partners, and start making some plans for how we can leverage what we've learned in this remote world going forward. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Very, very well, and thank you. And I think your thoughtfulness on not trying to shoot from the hip all of a sudden, but let's take some good notes of what's working, so when we get back to what we consider normal, we can go back and look at that, and we'll trigger something that says, you know, that really was a better way to do things. Let's figure it out. So I appreciate your thoughtfulness on that. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, this is Dave Minke. I have a question, if I may ask the judge. So, Judge Martin, have you had any discussions regarding, as the courts reopen, is that going to be driven at a statewide level, a district level, or a county level? Is there any thought yet as to how those decisions will get made?
Yes, there's been a lot of thought and a lot of angst. I think it will start, not I think, I should say it will start at the statewide level. The Chief Justice has convened, we convened a number of stakeholder meetings last week, and so I participated in 3 of those. We met with high-level stakeholders in each of our lines of business, criminal, child protection, family, civil, and we talked about, kind of gave them the outline of our plan and then talked to them about the transition phase. So we are definitely, and part of that is concerns that have been raised by our stakeholders about, coming back to our building. People are nervous about it. They're worried, and I understand that, as our court customers. So the Chief Justice and some of the state court staff had a pretty high-level meeting with the Minnesota Department of Health, several epidemiologists, and others to get feedback on what is it going to look like when we start having people back into our buildings. One of our work group recommendations is that we look at this as a fluid and a transitional process. We are not expecting to open the doors of the courthouse one day and just simply go back to business as usual. We know that when we have people back into our buildings, it's going to be on a limited basis at first, that it will be in phases, that we will need to continue to use the social distancing and proper health protocol. We also need to prioritize the cases that really need to be done in the courtroom, like we're talking jury trials and evidentiary or testimonial type hearings, and continue to try to use the remote opportunities that we have and paper review opportunities for other case types. When you say will it be at the state level, it definitely will start there. And this committee that I'm on, in fact, we have a meeting today. We have a transition plan, but we're going to continue to work on that plan. And then we will do that in conjunction with the recommendations from the Minnesota Department of Health. When it gets to the district level, certainly the district is going to need to talk about, are we going to be a pilot? We're probably not going to start just trying cases around the state. We're going to have a couple of pilots, a couple of counties that try cases, do a jury trial, see how it goes, what are the pitfalls. And the difficulties with trying jury cases, every day I get an email that says, oh yeah, we just thought, what do we do about this? And what do we do about that? And so we're going to definitely need to learn from what the pilots are doing. And then we are going to need to engage with our local, not only justice partners, but also our local health department. And I was going to talk to you, Dave, about that, making that connection. When we get to that point, we need to do an assessment of our courtrooms. We need to talk to our security detail. We need to know, where are people going to be and how are we going to keep them apart, and how many people can we have in the building at a time, and how are we going to social distance them in the courtroom, and will we be providing masks, and we need hand sanitizer, and so there's going to be, will we be doing evidentiary hearings with witnesses in the courtroom, or can some people appear remotely, and how will we accomplish that? So there's still a lot of questions out there, but it is being worked on both at the state and the district level. And when we get a little closer to time, we're definitely going to engage our local justice partners and also our local Department of Health folks. But it all kind of starts with the state, and the Chief Justice and Jeff Shorba, the state court administrator, and my committee, I shouldn't say that the committee, the other side committee, it's not my committee, the committee that I'm serving on, and there's a pandemic response team, There's a jury management response team that are working on these issues. We have a liaison with the Minnesota Department of Health. So there is a lot of work being done right now. We recognize it's going to be a complicated process.
Thank you, Judge Martin. And since you're on the phone and couldn't see Sam Lowe, she is our public health director, and she was waving when you had referenced public health. So she is at the table, and we will get her connected with the courts so that you can have that dialogue.
That would be excellent if you could, yes, I mean, if you could send her my contact information or include me on an email, that would be very helpful. I would very much like to have a conversation with her. Thank you, Mr. Minke. So I don't know if anybody else has any questions or concerns or for your constituents.
Anything else for the judge? We sure appreciate you taking time to meet with us. You're a big part of, you know, what goes on in that courthouse. So we
yes,
we appreciate your willingness to work with us and let us know what's going on from your end so we can try to help from our end.
I will tell you that from time to time, I do reach out to Dave Minke and just find out what the status of the building is. And I know he's promised to keep us informed. I will work with the local health representatives so that we can perhaps start strategizing a plan. And please, if you ever have any questions, you get a question from a constituent or a concern, or please feel free to reach out to me or have Dave reach out to me or to our court administrator. I assure you, you know, we definitely want to respond to the concerns of our community. So, and we are working, not as efficiently, but we are working.
I think that's, I think a lot of people have discovered that they lament the fact that they have to go to an office every day, but when things aren't quite as handy to do, they wish they were in the office sometimes instead of trying to do stuff from home. I understand.
We are social creatures, that's for sure.
Yes.
I appreciate the time. I am going to sign off, but please let me know if you need anything else, okay?
All right.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you to the county board. All right, bye-bye.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, this is Dave Minke. If I could just interrupt, and if people have not noticed, Commissioner Chafee did drop off the call at about 10:20, just as the judge was starting to speak. So I just wanted to let everyone know that he was no longer on the call.
Thank you. We'll move on to Essentia's EMS project and assignment of ambulance lease. Joe Newton is with us. There you are, Joe.
Yep, I am here. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and board. I believe that the PowerPoint was attached, but let's try this technology out and see how that goes.
Oh, works wonderfully. Thank you.
Oh, except for it's, you see the one monitor. I've got like 3 monitors here, so I won't just use this one. So some of the background regarding this, obviously the ambulance service in Sandstone is through a contracted service agreement with Pine County. Essentia Health operates it. The actual contract is with Pine Medical Center. So as far as our EMS system goes within Essentia, we currently operate 5 ambulance services across the state. We have services in Ada, Deer River, Detroit Lakes, Boston, and then Sandstone, with our bases also in Hinckley and Pine City. So the way that we currently operate is they're basically all 5 of our ambulance services are independent of each other. There's a little bit of different nuance with that with Deer River because I previously oversaw both operations, the Deer River and the Sandstone operations. So we have one medical director and we're very consistent on this side of the state. On the west side of the state, there's a lot of inconsistencies. So one of Essentia Health's fiscal year 20 strategic plan called for a decrease in clinical variations across the organization. So they were discussing that in regards to clinic and primary care. I took it and put it as far as how our ambulances operate. So with this new model, we had utilized one EMS medical director, and I believe I've talked about this in previous meetings, and to develop a consistent patient care guidelines for all of our EMS systems. So all of our care delivery models will be the same no matter, you'll receive the same care in Sandstone that you'll receive in Detroit Lakes that you'll receive in Foster. That leads to consistent equipment and disposable items. Through the structure, we also decrease our overhead through shared leadership, software, our buying power, we can leverage our buying power with a lot more services involved. Our plan is to continue to support all of our hospital operations as we currently do. So if the Sandstone Hospital needs assistance in the emergency department, they'd call us, we'd go over and help just like we currently do. The whole idea behind this is that the public would see no change. The trucks will look the same. Everything's the same. It's just an internal reorganization of the EMS services within Essentia Health. So we're going to continue to support the public and continue to integrate with our first responder agencies. And actually, how we were able to support the first responder agencies in Pine County is a benefit of this model because we actually used a training institution, an EMSRB training institution from our Detroit Lakes operation in order to train our first responders locally in Pine County. So that's how being one system, how there's additional benefits to this. We can actually develop what Essentia Health EMS is, what we are. We can look at any possible growth opportunities and react to those opportunities because we're not determining where that ambulance service is, who will they be affiliated with, etc. So for our employees, the goal is to decrease some staff turnover and allowing the opportunity to float between locations. This is extremely beneficial in situations like we're currently in with the pandemic. If we happen to have an outbreak, let's say in Pine County, I have a lot more employees in this model that I can then draw from to maintain the operations and maintain the continuity of operations within all of our organization. So, and not have any possible detriment to our patients. It's extremely difficult to do that underneath our current model. And then also, because we have a lot more staff involved, we can develop our education and our quality department and how that relates to EMS directly. Of course, there's a little bit of financial incentive. We can better utilize any of our capital assets through a shared model. What that means is if we're, let's say, going to buy a new ambulance in one location, that ambulance is better than some of our ambulances in the other locations. We can simply move that asset around versus doing an internal sale, let's say, is how it currently has to be done because it's multiple different companies interacting with each other. So that'll lead to the cost saving measures. We can leverage our purchasing power. And it's also one of the biggest reasons is that it's a benefit to our critical access hospitals. So in Sandstone, Deer River, Ada, and Foster, the ambulances are all departments of those hospitals. The way that critical access hospitals get reimbursed through Medicare is they do a Medicare cost report. By having an ambulance, a department of those hospitals, we're an exempt service, so it affects their reimbursement status. So as we look towards the future with healthcare, we need to make sure that we're organized appropriately to be able to leverage and make sure that our rural hospitals are sustainable financially. So to accomplish this goal, we need we already have an ambulance company internally within Essentia Health at St. Mary's EMS, which is our Detroit Lakes operation. So what we're looking at doing is taking our operational leases that we may have in our various locations, and we need those leases then assigned to this new company in order to take it out from underneath the hospital. But again, there's really no impact to the citizens there would be no impact to Pine County then either. So that's what this is all about. So, are there any questions?
Any questions? Joe, thank you. It was interesting. I didn't realize you had systems spread all the way to Ada, Minnesota. So the Deer River one, does the service area kind of connect somewhere in Aiken County to the Pine County one?
No, none of our service areas connect.
Okay.
So that's
But
why
can you just touch a little bit on these reciprocal agreements you have with, I think it's been working well lately from the Pine City area. We get people in Rock Creek that are used to going to Wyoming, and we get people from Pine City that are used to going to Mora, and it seems to work now. And so do you have reciprocal agreements with those hospitals?
Well, any patient that we pick up within our primary service area, and Pine County, or our Sandstone operations, Pine County operations is the largest of all of our, has the largest service area of all of our services. As long as the patient condition warrants, they have the choice, and we put that in policy shortly after I got there. I can't believe it's been like 9 years since I've been up here. So yeah, they typically doctor. Now there are caveats to that. Obviously, if road conditions, or in a pandemic, if we get to what's called crisis mode, then patients are transported to the facility no matter what their choice is. Simply as a resource allocation. But typically when we're in conventional mode, they get to go wherever they want within reason. So Wyoming, Cambridge, Mora.
That has taken several phone calls off of my list.
Well, I'm glad I could do that for you.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? Thanks for the service you're offering to Pine County, and we need a motion for the assumption of lease and consent authorizing the board and county administrator to sign. So, Matt, you must be muted.
We go move it.
Okay.
McRae second.
Ludwig moves, McRae seconds. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
And District 3, Commissioner Shapey is now absent.
Thank you. We'll move on to the a letter of support for community-based mental health grant. Becky, do you want to say anything about this? I'm not hearing you, Becky.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think I was having some technical difficulties there. I wasn't hearing anybody.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Health and Human Services intends to apply for a mental health innovation grant through the Department of Human Services. And one of the requirements for applying for the grant is a signed letter of support from the local county board. And so therefore, I'm requesting that the county board authorize the board chair to sign the letter of support that's in your packet. Just a little bit of information about the grant is it's a 2-year grant cycle to start on July 1st, 2020. It's a very competitive grant process. I believe the last time these were offered, 41 applicants and 6 applicants were awarded grant funding. So there's absolutely no guarantee that we will receive any grant award, but I think with the feedback received from the community about the importance of mental health services and the opportunity to expand community-based mental health services, I think this is really important to try.
Becky, we appreciate you bringing stuff like this forward. Because I think even if we don't get this grant, it prepares us to do a better job with what we have, and it also prepares us if another grant becomes available. Every time you write a grant, you reread that narrative that you've written and you find something that we could strengthen, and that just makes us all better. So we appreciate the work you put into this. So I need a motion for this.
Moore will move.
McRoth second.
Moore makes a motion, McRoth seconds. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Ludwig, are we still receiving, X amount of dollars from the state for our mental health? That it used to be like 230,000 or something. Is that funding still coming across after the problems we had there? I just can't remember that.
So yes, and there's 2 different kinds of funding sources from the state. So one that is county driven and one that is regionally driven.
Right.
Pine County is part of the Region 70 Adult Mental Health Initiative that funds several mental health activities in the region, such as the crisis line, a regional psychiatric service for medication monitoring. So we do have 2 different funding sources, so to speak. And when we apply for this grant, that is part of it. We can't use it to supplant what we already do. It has to be to expand what we're trying to do.
Okay, so that was my question. So what are the changes we want to make then?
Sure. So right now, I don't think it's the best time to actually add any FTEs to the department, just because we don't know what the future is going to hold with the economic future, so to speak. And so we are looking to partner with Wellness in the Woods. They are a consumer-driven mental health agency, and we're looking to expand our peer-to-peer programming. So really trying to create more support for those who are struggling with their mental health issues on a one-to-one basis. And then also trying to beef up our support via technology, especially in rural areas, making sure people have access to what they need for technology, such as phones and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
Really partnering with Wellness in the Woods to beef up that peer-to-peer support.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Good question, Matt. Thanks, Becky. If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
District 3, Commissioner Shakey is absent. And District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Yes.
Okay. We'll move on to the reappointment of the county engineer. And for the life of me, I thought we did this already when I read the agenda, but we just talked about it, right?
We did talk about it, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Every 4 years.
Yeah, I know it's every 4 years, but Didn't like last month? I thought we already did this.
Mr. Chair, Dave Minke speaking. Yes, you did have it. It was on the Personnel Committee agenda in April. And so it went as part of the minutes to the last meeting. But Minnesota statute 163.07 requires that the appointment actually be made in the month of May. And so we delayed it to May. And so the Personnel Committee recommended reappointment. And I certainly recommend reappointment. We know Mark has done fantastic work in his time with Pine County. And so if you want to reappoint him at this time, you can do that.
Well, I certainly appreciate Mark's abilities. I really appreciate your candor, Mark, because I think we have a staff full of people who aren't afraid to say what they think needs to be said and not what we want to hear. And I appreciate that. I think our whole board appreciates that. So thank you, Mark. And if somebody wants to make a motion to that effect?
Ludwig, we'll move it.
Moore will second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just want to let you know it's a real privilege to work here for all of you and Administrator Minke, and I look forward to 4 more years.
Thanks.
Thanks for the work you do, Mark.
And Debbie, you want to call the roll?
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
District 3, Commissioner Shafee is absent. District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Thank you. We'll move on to Mark. Do you want to? Who wants to take this here? Hiring of the assistant county engineer.
Mark,
David?
you want to take that?
Yes. As you know, we're in some transition with our supervisory staff. There we go. We have our right-of-way manager who's essentially acted as my assistant engineer over the years. The 20 years I've worked with him, 38 years he's worked here. We've got a handful of people that have worked with him for 30 years, and some of those people will be retired in a couple of years. I think we're fortunate to get Aaron Gunderson as a candidate to be the assistant. He's got a lot of experience working for MnDOT. Prior to that, he worked for the Wyoming DOT, and he's currently the assistant at Carlton County. And so I think it says a lot about Pine County that we're able to draw someone from another county. He does have ties to the area, and that's one of the drivers in him wanting to come down here, move down to this area. Close to him and his wife's family, so I think that's great as well. And I think he'll bring some new concepts and challenge me a little bit and understaff a little as we transition. And so I'm looking forward to having help.
Thank you. We need a motion to hire Aaron Gunderson, assistant county engineer.
Ludwig, we'll move it.
Moore will second.
A motion by Ludwig, second by Moore. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
District 3, Commissioner Shafee is absent. District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes. Mark, one follow-up question is, when will he start and how long will Todd be around?
Todd will be submitting his retirement notice at the next board meeting, at the end of the month. And Aaron is gonna be starting the 26th, so you'll get a crash course on, utility permitting and right of way and proper time to take break and those types of things.
All right. Thank you. We'll move on to the county COVID-19 update.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we have Sam Lowe, our Public Health Director, on the call, so we're going to start with the public health update.
There we go. You picked a good time because it's 11:01, so I just really quickly grabbed our updated numbers from the state, which updated 11. So just to start, big picture worldwide, there are 3.6 million cases. It just keeps going up. So that's where we're at globally. 252,000 deaths. So again, it's not flatlining, but it's not crazy spikes at the moment, just trucking along. About a third of those cases are in the US. We have 1.2 million cases in the US, and we're just under 70,000 deaths right now. Preliminary. Bringing it into our new updated Minnesota numbers that just posted, we are at 7,851 cases, which is an addition of 617 from yesterday. So that's the first time we've gone over 600 cases in a day. Past handful of days, it's been between somewhere in the 500s. So now we've hit 600. Oddly enough, though, yesterday we had less testing than normal. We only had about 1,800 tests, but we still had that really high spike in numbers. And we're sitting at 455 deaths and 27 yesterday. Again, with hospitalizations, we're just seeing that slow uptick right now. We're at 434 hospitalizations, 182 ICU. So it's not a crazy spike, but it's not flatlining either. It's just slowly increasing. But the slowness of it does mean that we're able to get that hospital capacity up, which is the entire point of the stay-at-home order, is to build up that hospital capacity.
Is it geographically specific where the bulk of the cases are in Minnesota? Is it the metro areas, or do we know?
Yep. So if you go on the state website here, I can actually, let me share my screen with you, and I can show you map. Come here, share. Just a second, and I'll show you the map. Come here. Get big. All right. So all this data, we'll skim over that. So I wish they would have more color, because right now blue is anybody over, I think, 50 cases. So we're just as blue as Stearns County. But if we click on Stearns County, they have 728 right now because they have a outbreak going on in a couple plants. I think they're meatpacking plants. Only 2 deaths though. So Stearns is a hotbed. Definitely the metro has a lot of cases. Hennepin has 2,200. Ramsey only 535. So there's actually more in Stearns than Ramsey. Nobles is somewhere down here. I forget where Nobles is. There it is. 1,000 cases in Nobles County. So it was very much concentrated in the metro for a while, only because of, population density, but it's not only there. I mean, 80 cases in St. Louis County. So it's starting to spread and be seen more and more in the rural areas. And you just have these crazy spikes with plants.
It seems to me if you have a meat packing plant or a correctional facility, your numbers are going to be big.
Yep, and that's why ours is as high as it is because the vast majority of our numbers are in Willow River Correctional Facility right now. So, yep, Olmsted 305. They have a, Rochester's not huge, but it's not tiny. So yeah, that just kind of gives you a kind of a layout of where the cases are as of 4 o'clock yesterday. Stop sharing that, go back to my notes. So just to zoom in on Pine County, we haven't changed much over the past week or so. We're at 60 cases. 47 of those are at Willow River. Age range between 22 and 74. And we have not had anybody die yet. So, woohoo. 11 of those.
Did you say
47 at Willow River.
47 at Willow?
Yep. So there's 13 who are not inmates in Pine County.
So Sam, are they having to do, there's contact with those inmates by staff. So have they done trace back then to who, or what are they doing there with, in that setting? Because they have to move around the public.
So there's a couple pieces in play there. One is that everybody who is working at the jail does symptom checking every day. They have universal masking for inmates and staff. So it decreases your risk of transmission because everybody's wearing masks and they're wearing, masks that both protect them and others. So if they know somebody's symptomatic, that staff member is going to have an N95 on. So that decreases that staff member's chance of catching anything. We do also, the couple correctional facilities are working with emergency management to get housing. So if that staff member doesn't feel comfortable going home because they have an elder relative living at home or somebody who's a higher risk family member living there, they don't feel comfortable doing that, we can get them housing through a couple different places that they can stay at.
Okay.
I know that's been used a couple times now. So yeah, there's a couple layers there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just other couple updates from the county. We now have a testing site at Essentia Sandstone. So yay, that is 7 days a week in the morning. It's just based on when the courier can pick up testing or the test kits. So they go 8:30 to 12:30 Monday through Friday and 8 to 11 on the weekend. So any symptomatic person is able to get a test. They just have to go through the e-visit first. So they can call a number or go online and go through that screening process beforehand. And once they screen in for a test, then they can go through this drive-through testing site. They don't have to get out of their car. They just go straight through, and it's really slick.
How do they verify that? Is it just a code they give them then when they go through, or is it?
Yeah, when they do their e-visit, they call it a zip ticket. I don't know why they call it a zip ticket, but it's like, I'm assuming it's an email that they get to prove that they've gone through the screening process. And then they get scheduled on the testing docket, basically. So yeah, we've got that going on. And the other thing is that case investigation is going to be transitioning down to us here shortly. So up until this point, if you test positive, the state had contacted you and done a full, basically an interview of you going, where have you gone? What, how are you doing? Do you need anything? Who have you been in contact with? And because of the increased testing means more case investigation because more positives, the state just doesn't have the capacity to handle it. So they're now transitioning it down to us to do at the local level. So we'll be shortly here, hopefully, doing all of Pine County's positive cases. So it should be good. I'm excited. It's actually a good change because it's going to be easier to coordinate some things once we start doing it. So more to come there. But those are the big public health stuff I've got for you right now. Happy to answer more questions.
Thank you.
There are no questions for Sam. I think Denise Barron, the emergency management coordinator, is on the phone. Is it Denise? Are you there?
I am. Good morning, everyone. Just a few things to follow up with public health. We have used some resources through the highway department to help essentially get their testing site up. So that's very much appreciated. We had some issues with some barricades and all that good stuff. So that worked out pretty slick. The next thing on the list is the state has been notifying us of, for our first responders, of addresses and that through the system, so we can notify anybody who's going on scene for any positive cases, so we can better help our people. That hasn't been going as smooth as we planned initially, and that's throughout the state. some issues there with just the information that they get and then being passed on. So little by little, we're working through that each day. Talking about personal protective equipment for all of our people. Now that the shipments are starting to get caught up with each other, shipments are coming in left and right. So that's helpful. The fire department, about 2 weekends ago, did a drive for cloth face masks, and that was very successful. And we've gotten a number of them here that were left, not left over, but an excess basically that we're going to get out with public health help out to other facilities that are in need of them. So that's about it.
Thank you. Any questions for Denise?
I talk sometimes without unmuting, I'm sorry. Maybe you guys like that part. Anyway, I did get a text from Representative Nelson that he had to step away from the call. So I can't ask him any questions.
So Kelly, previously the county board has done a partial abatement of property taxes. And so Kelly Schroeder, Auditor Treasurer, can give a quick update on property tax collections through the end of April.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have kind of a graph that I have made of historical collections back to 2007. I'm going to attempt to share, so let's see if this works. All right. You see that graph?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Okay, super. So this graph shows through April 30th, each of the last years, and then this year, where we're at for collections. You have to remember that, every year, obviously, levies have mostly slightly increased. So the total amount of collections we have really over the years should be a little bit more. Through April 30th is a little bit of a hard number to look at though, because really it all depends on the timing of the escrow company payments. You can see that note that I've got down there right below the graph. And that
Kelly,
is because,
Kelly,
oh,
we actually cannot see the notes. We just end up there.
There we go.
okay, now you're seeing them.
Yeah, we're through 2018 on the notes.
Okay, sounds good. So depending on when we receive those escrow company payments really makes a difference on our April collections. So like in 2017, we actually hadn't received any escrow company collections through April. So you can see those collections were pretty low. In 2018, we had actually received most escrow companies through April. 2019, we had only received some. And then this year, we've only received a few of the small ones. So like Northview Bank, for example, we've received theirs, but they're, very, very small compared to some of the larger banks. And so, right now you can look at the graph and think, oh, we're kind of behind in collections. But really, when you take that escrow company piece out, our individual taxpayers that pay, we're actually ahead of where we were last year in collections. And as far as the penalty waiver, I really think, I'm not sure how much that's actually going to come into play. I found that a lot of businesses unfortunately don't know about it. So I've been trying to do some outreach on that. On Saturday morning, for example, I'm on the Pine City Scrapbooking. I'm on their newsletter, and in their newsletter, they had a note that they're concerned about paying their property taxes. And so then, I reached out to them and they had no idea about the waiver option, about the lower penalties. And so I'm hopeful, this week, next week, we can get some more of that information out. I did some posts on Facebook over the weekend, but I'm not sure how much those are seen. So just make sure as you're talking to people, they understand that option is there, because those businesses that have been affected, it makes a big difference whether they have to make that huge bill or not. Questions?
Thanks, Kelly. That's very interesting.
You're welcome.
Any questions, Kelly?
Continuing on with updates, we know that we have a lot of employees working from home and a number of employees who are rotating into the office so that there's fewer employees in the office at any one time. We're continuing with that, and we are continuing to upgrade people's homework experience as we can do that with adding additional monitors or keyboards, those kinds of technology pieces. And then, as Judge Martin was talking about with regard to the courts reopening, I think the common theme is going to be a phased approach. We are intending to keep people working remote as long as we reasonably can and rely on services if people need in-person services that at least for quite a while they would be making a telephone or email contact first to determine that that service is not available or they have a special case where we need to reach out to them. Many of the health and human services services that are now being done remotely via telephone or video are contingent upon the state of emergency. And so when the state of emergency goes away, there either needs to be separate action to continue those waivers or those services will have to phase back in. And I know that's a conversation that's being held at the legislative level. Last week, there was a hearing at the Health and Human Services, one of the Health and Human Services committees in the Senate on those exact waivers and which ones maybe should continue. So that's an ongoing unknown. We, in addition to the property taxes, Kelly has been looking at the budget overall. Lacking or barring a reduction in aid from the state this year, our budget for 2020 is probably fairly sound. It's 2021 where we are expecting significant changes. We do know that the state is scheduled this afternoon to do a budget update. And so that's going to drive the legislative decision making going forward to the end of the session and then even looking ahead into 2021. And then also the state is expected to release an updated model on the disease that will show the cases and case spreads. And so once that is released, we'll have more current information for our planning purposes. And so I'd like to open it up to any of the department heads who are on the call who maybe have some department specific updates to share. Jackie, are you muted?
I'm no longer muted. If you're looking for an update, I don't really have much to add. We've continued to provide benefit information to employees. Insurance companies are allowing some different changes with healthcare savings accounts. We're also increasing our ability to have telehealth. We're working on some seminars for employees learning how to more effectively work remotely and different subjects like that. Assisting employees with questions on unemployment, helping supervisors with staffing has really been kind of the projects that we've been busy with.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So this is probably a question for Kelly or David, but are we seeing any expenses that are jumping or that are new to the county just because of that are COVID-19 and anything that we're doing different? Is there any major difference there?
So this is Kelly. So, I mean, there's not anything major yet at this point. Obviously, we've got the expenses that we knew were going to happen. You know, some extra cell phones that were purchased, and things like that for some remote work. And then we're just starting to see some of those like PPE purchases coming in, but nothing yet that's really, you know, hugely going to impact anything. Late last week, I did attend a webinar from FEMA regarding the reimbursement process. So I think I've got a good grasp on that. And so, you know, we'll just kind of continue on.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this is Terry. Probation has developed a COVID-19 specific policy and is working on the operations plan as well. The operations plan will be more detailed, specific to visits with clients, urinalysis, and so on. The effective date on both of those will be dated the 18th, and the governor's next order to expire. But that being said, you know, the policy is general enough, and you know, we would obviously be rolling out in those phases along with the county and the courts, and so staff safety being a priority for me. So we just want to have some language in place, some more guidance, but obviously we'll be cautious first and foremost. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Follow up on Commissioner Ludwig's question about expenses. We have received a $75,000 public health grant that we have been able to expend some of these purchases against. And so those funds have been, at this point, more than enough to cover our costs to date. And so we maybe are a little different than some other jurisdictions in that we have not had to deal with issues like some of the metro counties are dealing with housing issues, or some of the hog producing counties are dealing with, you know, what to do with thousands of hog carcasses that have had to be destroyed. We have not had those types of costs yet. So that's, I guess, where we stand, and we do have a grant that's covering the COVID-19 costs to date.
If I could just add something about that COVID-19 grant, I do know that it's helping to cover, I would assume, like a lot of the staff expenses associated with staffing the hotline that's up and running from 8 to 5. I think we either have 2 or 3 staff on that Monday through Friday. And so I think it's helping to offset those expenses as well, along with some thermometer, for example. But just some additional information about the $75,000 grant and how we're using that in public health.
It'll also be used for once we start doing case investigations. People are going to be billing their time for that against that grant. So the grant's going to run out at some point. But right now we do have money. That's nice. And the grant was divvied up based on cost for FTE for counties based on population. So it's based off of our public health emergency grant. So every rural county got at least $75,000, which was their calculation for one FTE. And metro counties got more, and then rural counties with such and such population got more. So everybody got at least that much.
Any other department head updates? Or any other questions from commissioners?
My only question or ask is, if you have ideas, could you text or email me of what we may have learned going forward? Because I think we have an incredible opportunity with AMC, and they recognize that we're doing things differently than we were 5 months ago or 3 months ago. And are there some lessons that we've learned that we can form into some documents that we can present to legislators to say, you know, if you allowed this to work, we found out it really does work well. And so I think that's what this group is going to try to work at is, are we being constrained for not being able to do what we have found out would be a lot more efficient and maybe a better way of doing business when it comes. So you could email me those thoughts, and we'll present our case to the AMC board, or the committee at least. So the other thing I want to just say as the board chair, and I guess I'm speaking for Steve Holland mostly, but I think I'm also speaking for the board. I'm very incredibly proud of all you people for stepping up to the plate and putting on your happy face and figuring out how to do things. You know, we had two choices. We could go stick our head in the sand and say this is a stupid thing, and we turned around and said we can do this. We still have people to take care of in this county. We've got jobs that we can do, and let's figure out the best way to do it. And some incredible work has been done, and I see some very positive things that have come out of this. I know it has not been easy for everybody. We understand that. I see my own kids who can work from home occasionally, and now they've been home for a month in a couple of cases. And you know, they're people. They need to go to work once in a while, and so you know, they struggle sometimes. They got to get it. Luckily, they live someplace where they can take a walk in the woods or go walk around the block or something. But just tell your employees we know the struggles they're going through in some cases, and we appreciate what they're doing.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I agree with your comments 100% about what we've learned from this. And we have our District 1 AMC meeting is coming up this month, I think. So if we had some ideas to even take to that meeting from some of the staff, that would be wonderful.
Yep, I think so. I think we can write the book on some changes that would be positive for us all.
Mr. Chair, if I could just make a comment to follow up, kind of the staff management piece you were mentioning in your comments. With remarkable staff we have had to make some very difficult decisions with regard to staffing levels, right? So we have laid off one position and don't expect to bring that position back. And then we have another like 18 or 19 employees who are at some level of furlough, and we anticipate bringing them back when the work picks up. And then the longer this goes on into May, there's potentially more employees who may have partial furloughs just due to lack of work. And so this, you know, we all have friends and neighbors who have lost jobs or lost hours due to this pandemic. And a lot of those friends and neighbors are county employees as well.
Right. Exactly right. So, any other updates on COVID? And thanks. Yeah, I know you keep meeting. I don't know if we'll go to one meeting a week, but right now the staff has been meeting twice a week, and the meetings I've noticed are getting shorter. So, you know, because it kind of gets to be the same old thing, kind of. I think we're smart enough to know if we got to meet more, we can. So we'll move on to commissioner updates, and that list is getting shorter, it looks like. NLX was canceled. Snake River Watershed was canceled. Congressman Stauber's video meeting. Actually, some of us, I participated in two of his calls. I was late to one of them by quite a bit, and then my phone was not, for some reason I couldn't ask the question that I wanted to ask, but it probably wasn't that important anyway. But anyway, we did meet with him the other day, and his staff has, he stated it, and his staff is willing to, you know, if we have issues, we have some staff members that can elevate that probably way beyond what we can do as county commissioners and staff. It's always amazing when a congressman's office calls somebody, how things seem to work better than if Joe Blow calls. So I think if we hear of things and bring it to one of the staff meetings and it can get elevated to either our state representatives or our congressional representatives, and we can help with things like, I know they're still struggling with the unemployment for self-contractors, like hairdressers and those and caterers and those kind of people who were told to shut their door and one day, and they've not been able to open them yet, and they were told they would be compensated for that, and they have yet to receive a nickel. So it's getting to be a long 6 weeks for them. So anyway, Extension Committee, did you guys meet?
I did not make it, sorry.
Okay. Any other committees? I will say that I was contacted by Julie Ring, AMC Executive Director, to sit on a committee that I described earlier. And so I would appreciate any feedback I can get. We're going to try to meet tomorrow and figure out how this is going to work and what product we can kind of get out of it. So that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing from the fact that somebody in this state recognizes that Pine County has stepped up and is doing some pretty good things. When we tell people that we got, what did you say, Becky, 85–90% of the HHS people working remotely, they're thinking they're hearing wrong. So that's a great story. Anything else? We do have several meetings on the schedule. I know I've got one coming up on Thursday with the Council on Aging, and you know, stuff is, I think we've now figured out that the normal, we can't just delay not having meetings forever. So we figured out how to do them electronically. And so I think we'll see more and more of those committee meetings starting to kick into gear that we were able to put off for a month.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Matt, or Ludwig, the Nemadji One Watershed One plan was canceled for May 7th.
Okay.
We'll carry on. So I don't know if you got that, Debbie, for the.
Chair Allen, I think you had an update on a conversation you had with the city of Pine City on the compost site.
Yes, thank you.
Caleb has a graphic to put up if he wants to do that.
Are you still there, Caleb?
Yes, I am. I was not thinking about that, so I got to quick pull it up. If you want to start with a little bit on the conversation.
I'm not seeing you anyway, Caleb, so I don't know if that's universal or if I'm the only one not seeing you.
Here, I'm here. Can you see me now?
There we are. Yep. All right. Yes, Caleb has reminded me probably more than he should have had to, that the relationship we have with the city of Pine City over the putting our recycling and stuff at their compost site is kind of not on real firm ground. And so if we're going to invest any money in there, maybe we should look at a more long-term solution. So I met with,
I was bidding on auction last night.
met with a
I'll be picking them
couple
up later this week.
of council members and talked about it, and they seem to think that they don't have any issue if we became through a long-term lease agreement or purchase or gift or whatever, that we would become the number one client, so to speak. So what we did there was going to be ours. And so Caleb, I see you've got your graphic up so everybody knows what we're talking about.
Yep. So this is just on the west side of the freeway. You can see the site entrance, and the compost facility is one parcel back where that's operating. So it's been handy. The proximity to the courthouse has been extremely handy for, working with the attendants there.
So part of my thinking is, if we think long term, I don't know what long term is, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. If we want to continue to do this, and the household hazardous waste thing has been wonderful. I get people stopping me at church and wherever. Of course, lately they haven't, but they shoot me an email how nice it is to have that household hazardous waste thing. And I think now they're figuring out the recycle sheds are not going to be sitting at Chris's and by Super America or wherever, by the car wash. And so they've figured that out. The other thing that I hear from people, because of our proximity to all of the households that live outside the city limits, but are in very densely populated areas like around the lake, they have no place to put their compost. If they cut down branches or brush or whatever they got, where are they supposed to take it? And so somebody tells them about the compost site, and they get there, and the attendant says, this is only for city residents. And then they get all frustrated, and then they are told that if they paid X amount of dollars, they could dump the stuff there. So part of me says, if we're going to be there anyway, why can't we just run the compost site? I don't think it'd be a lot of extra work, and I think we could figure that out, and we would then eventually, and it won't happen overnight, it won't happen probably this summer, but eventually then we could have a one-stop shop where everything could get taken. If you had something from branches off your trees to fluorescent light bulbs to paint, you could get rid of it at one site instead of sending people all over the county. That would be my dream. I don't know how long it would take us to get there, but we got to start someplace. So, you got anything beyond that, Caleb?
Not really. Just there's so much more traffic going through that property now with both compost and the recycling of materials. So what maybe made sense the way it was operating before, where I had a conversation with the attendant about whether you lived in city limits or not. Now there's a lot more traffic coming through, and it just kind of bogs the system down. And to most of the people who drive through, it should be irrelevant where exactly their house is around Pine City. They just want to get in and take care of their load and move on. So that's one thing. For a shared operation, that system is not working very well, and we've struggled to find a system that works for both the city and the county in moving people through efficiently, and providing facilities for staff to work out of. It seemed to me like something we could work cooperatively with, but hasn't been quite as simple as you'd think. So I'm a little regretful for that. And then also we've just looked for so many different other properties and have not had success. So there's a lot to be said for just adjusting what's going on at this property and building upon it and making it just more efficient for everybody.
So that's where we're at. If anybody has better suggestions or comments, yes, Matt. Are you I'm not hearing you, Matt? Did you have a question? Or you were just?
No.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
you stand one more update. So hot off the press is the pre-release of the state budget forecast, and our $1.5 billion surplus has gone to a $2.4 billion deficit. So the formal or complete presentation will be at 2 o'clock this afternoon, but they have released the big numbers so far. So we're almost $2.5 billion at a deficit for the rest of the biennium. So that will clearly change the conversation.
Holy buckets. I knew it would be, didn't quite think it'd be that bad, but
Well,
yeah.
maybe the little glimmer of hope is the state's rainy day fund had about almost $2.4 billion. So there is a little bit of that deficit presumably will be made up with the rainy day fund, because metaphorically, clearly a pandemic is quite a rainstorm.
Well, I don't envy those people, and it will affect us. I mean, in some way, shape, or form. So we need to think about that. I don't know that we can. There's a lot of things that we have to think about, but there's not a lot of things that we can react to yet because we don't know what we're reacting to. But we'll keep our thinking caps on. Anything else? I think that's all I see on the agenda, and that's all I have on my notes. I see nothing else. I will declare the meeting adjourned. And before people start hanging up, I think I saw Skip on there. Is today one of the days you can pick up trees at Soil and Water?
Steve, that's probably Sue Thompson,
Oh,
would be my guess.
okay. Matt, you don't know, do you?
I think it starts Wednesday, but
I got a postcard, but of course I knew I remember what day it was, so I threw the postcard away.
Wednesday.
Okay, starts tomorrow?
Steve, their website says they're available for pickup May 6th through May 9th.
Okay. That'll be all right with me.
Steve, will I see you sometime today?
You could. Or I could run in there. I got one major item on my agenda here. And that is I have to clean the water line to the water dispenser on the refrigerator.
All right,
Before I leave the house.
if you come into the office, the paperwork will be where it typically is in the conference room.
Okay, thanks, Debbie.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
Bye-bye.
Bye.